Hi, Freedom Fighters. Dr. Zach here. Welcome to Freedom Friday. Hey, I wanted to just continue this conversation we've been having about freedom and the truth that sets us free. If we understand that to be true, then we know that lies and deception are what keep us enslaved, and that the powers that be that try to enslave us are the ones that are going to be spewing lies and hiding the truth from us. So I wanted to share a couple of articles that I came across. Here's one that actually came from a story that was published on the Epoch Times. And it's talked about the CDC actually admitting that they lied to the public and falsely claimed that there was no evidence that the COVID jabs had killed anyone. And this goes back to the beginning when Pfizer was hiding all of their stuff, Moderna was hiding all of this stuff. The legislators were fighting so that they could actually hide this information from the public for 75 years because they didn't want us to find out about it, because guess what? It was killing people. The CDC knew this. So as the CDC lied, more and more people died. In fact, if you take a look at the vaccine adverse event reporting system that was shut down mid-COVID because there were record numbers of people dying and reporting the vaccines as being the cause of that, and countless other adverse events that were being noted that had permanently affected people's lives, the CDC shut that down, silenced it, and continued to perpetuate the myth that this was safe and this was effective. And so what we see is that the CDC evidence, they had evidence that the vaccines were killing people, but they were convincing everybody that it was just a coincidence and that there was no causative effect. So in their view, if you get a healthy person who gets the jab and then right away starts having AFib and 5 days later dies from a heart attack, that's just purely coincidence and has nothing to do with the fact that this jab was causing these kinds of things to happen over and over and over again. So what we see is that there is no doubt that these jabs are horrible, the worst thing that's ever been put on mankind and mandated in so many places for us to get. And the CDC, they didn't just ignore that there was a problem. They didn't just kind of go, yeah, I don't really believe it. They purposely hid it and they continue to deceive it. That's crimes against humanity. There was genocide that took place and the CDC was complicit in that. And so here's where I want to take and run with this as well, is I came across another article, and this was actually a survey that was done by KFF, which is formerly the Kaiser Family Foundation, and it was talking about health misinformation. And so this is a survey that was just recently done, and they were taking a look at people who considered themselves to be Democrat versus people that considered themselves to be Republican. And in present day, post the COVIDiot stuff that took place, it says that it didn't matter what party line you affiliated with, that roughly 95+% of the people trust their doctors. That the doctors are still have the truth that they need to get. And I don't want to bash all doctors, but let me tell you, there's a difference between evil and good. Evil is a weak person that knows that there's truth but is afraid to admit it because it might get them in trouble. Truth comes from a person who's powerful and recognizes that it's more important to face some kind of adverse response from people, possibly some penalties, possibly even having your business closed or shut down or other things take place, because the truth needs to go out because people are important enough to receive that. And so as I look across the board and I see how many doctors during COVID remained silent, I think, how could anybody possibly trust that person anymore? And sure, there are some that are repentant. Sure, there are some of those that woke up. Sure, there are some of those that say, oh, dang, we missed it, and so maybe we should have done something. But unless they are vocal, unless they are adamant, unless they're calling out the powers that be and are dispelling the darkness, if they're not taking and making a vocal effort to show the lies that were put on everybody, they're complicit. They're part of the problem. And so it just amazes me that we've got 90+% of our population that still trust their doctors. Maybe that's why we lead the world in chronic illness. Maybe that's why our medical system is still the number one cause of death in the United States, because we still trust our doctors. And I don't want to bash specific doctors. I want to bash our medical system. Because I know a lot of doctors. I put out a video Wednesday and I talked about Dr. Joe Mercola and how he is a freedom fighter. He is a strong man who stood up against the tyranny, and he lost so much through the pandemic. His face was tarnished, but he spoke the truth vocally. He changed his stance. He recognized that most of what he learned in medical school was a lie, and he has basically come out and said, I've got to expose that. That's a strong person. That's a freedom fighter. That's a doctor we can trust. What I see across the board, and it doesn't matter what your training is, whether you're a MD, DO, chiropractor, acupuncturist, anybody who's providing healthcare advice to somebody, if they haven't vocally exposed the darkness and the lies and the deception, I wouldn't trust them. I just wouldn't. But here's where it gets kind of even more frightening as we take a look at this, and this is where we really start to see a shift in your political alignment. And so it says, Centers for Disease Control, do we trust them? And what we see is that almost 90% of those that claim to be Democrats trust the CDC. They think that they're good. They're still telling the truth. We're looking at just under 50% of those that call themselves Republican. You know, my guess is if we take a look at this article that says the CDC knew the truth and they didn't just ignore it, they actually suppressed it so that they could actually sell more vaccines, because that's where their livelihood comes. They own the patent on most of the vaccines that are given to kids on the normal vaccine schedule. They get kickbacks all the time on this stuff. The fact that 50% of the people anywhere with any kind of affiliation still trust the CDC just blows me away. It's like, how many times do we have to be lied to? Lied to the point to where genocide has taken place. Lies that cause deaths, and we still trust and believe. As freedom fighters, we need to be vocal about sharing the truth. As we take and we embrace the truth, and we recognize that our medical system does not make us well, but the God-breathed wisdom that animates our cells, that orchestrates our immune system, that allows us to adapt to all that's going on around us when we nurture it, when we take care of it, when we honor it, when we rest it and exercise it and feed it properly, when we take and we celebrate with gratitude so that we can keep things in balance and work in the way that they're designed to work, that's where healing comes from. That's where wellness comes from. That's where freedom comes from, because I'm not dependent upon any doctor, any medicine, anything else out there for me to be well. I'm only dependent upon the power of the breath of God that animates my cells. And as long as I continue to honor that and to work with that and to remove anything that would interfere with that, then I can be free to exercise my health and live in that freedom. So with that said, freedom fighters, we're strong. We know the truth. We speak the truth. When we see the lie, we expose it. This is where freedom comes. So let freedom ring. God bless you. Make today a great one.